A few years ago, I was at a conference in Copenhagen. The conference was fantastic, but at the end, there was a huge storm in the area and I couldn't leave on the airplane that I was planned to leave on. I was stuck in Copenhagen for an extra 2 days and had to find a hotel to stay in. I had to pay for a load of extra things that I wasn't expecting, and as I was leaving, the airline said that they would refund for any additional costs that we'd incurred. That was fantastic. When I got home, I went onto their portal, uploaded all my receipts and explained the journey that I'd been on, clicked submit, and nothing happened. The website went blank. I didn't really know what to do. I was kind of frustrated because I'd spent ages filling out all the details on this form. But anyway, I started back at the beginning, filled in all the details again, clicked submit, and everything worked. I didn't really think anything of it, but a few days later I got refunded twice. I don't really know what happened behind the scenes, but I can take a good guess. So in this episode of Java in the Cloud, we're going to talk about idempotency and how you can protect your own systems from having this sort of adverse effect. Thank you. So here's what I think happened. I think I went to the website and I went to fill out their big form, filled that in with all the information that I had, and then I clicked the submit button, and I think this probably would have sent all the information to some sort of API. Let's call it the refund API. I think behind the scenes that probably stored some state, but in that period I think something went wrong, and then I think the request timed out. The front end didn't really handle this very well, so I didn't really know what to do. And I made the same actions again. So I filled out the form, I clicked the button again, thinking that I was doing the right thing. And I think what happened is that it did the same actions again. Now we have 2 records in some sort of database, and then later on in the week, something processed all of those records and I get refunded twice. Okay, let's have a little think about what should have happened. So when I come to the website and fill in their form, the website should, as part of the API request, add something called an idempotency key. And in this case, the idempotency key would be a hash of maybe my customer identifier and maybe the journey that I was going on as part of the refund. So this key would be sent as part of the request to the API that's processing the request. And the first thing this API would do is check to see if this key has ever been seen before. If it has, it will just stop processing and return a successful response back to the front end. In this case, this was the first request that I'd made, so it does its processing, it stores the fact that I need a refund, and in an ideal case, it would return a successful response back to the front end. In the case that happened to me, there was a failure and a timeout here. So what would happen if that happened for whatever reason? If the front end sends another request for the same key, again, the API would, as part of its processing, first check if the database had any record of that key. Because it's a second request, I now have a record in the database that I've seen this key before. I don't do any further processing. I return successful. Now, when the batch processing comes along to do my refund, there's just 1 record in the database, and I correctly get 1 payment instead of 2. Even though I may have had a timeout, or I may have had a duplicate request for the same journey, I'm only going to get paid once. To make your Lambda functions idempotent, I would recommend using Powertools for AWS Lambda. This is the Java version. It's also available in other languages. Lambda Powertools has lots of different features, but one of my favorite is the idempotency feature. To install Powertools, we add a dependency, configure the build process, and then simply we have to define a persistence store where we're going to keep the idempotency information. We need to be able to keep the idempotency key and the request that was made. After that, we add a couple of small configuration items into our Lambda function or into our application, and then simply the method that we want to be idempotent, we add the idempotency annotation to. This will make a idempotency key from the event that has been sent in, or you can actually configure the application to use a specific idempotency key. Let me show you how that works. So for example, if you wanted to make a idempotency key from part of the request, you would say idempotency key with another annotation, and it would use this specific string as the idempotency key. This is a really fantastic way of making your system idempotent from the start. This is going to make sure that when you receive duplicate requests, you're going to handle them gracefully. And this is the process that the Lambda Powertools idempotency functionality adheres to. You can go into this in more detail on your own, and hopefully you found this useful and interesting. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the messages below. And if you like this content, please think about subscribing and giving us a thumbs up. Thank you very much.